Labor Day, written by Kara Freed. Focus question. Why is Labor Day important? Back to school. Many students in the United States go back to school right after Labor Day, the first Monday in September. For those students, this federal holiday marks the end of summer. It's a time to enjoy one last blast of fun before the school year starts. Many businesses and all government offices close, and communities often hold parades and picnics. People may go to the beach or just enjoy the extra day off at home. Labor Day isn't just a day to take it easy, though. It's also a day the U.S. government set aside to honor the achievements of American workers, past and present. To understand what Labor Day honors, it's important to learn about the labor movement. This movement involves workers joining together to improve the way they work and live. Machines and workers. During the Industrial Revolution, late 1700s to early 1800s, many new kinds of technology were invented. The inventions allowed many jobs, once done by hand, to be done much faster and more easily by machines. Farmers began using machines to plant and harvest crops. Many small farmers who could not afford to buy the machines lost their jobs. Also, factories could produce items at a much lower cost than small home businesses. Because of these changes, many people in farming communities moved to cities and went to work in factories. Many employers wanted to pay workers as little as possible so the businesses could keep more money. Though some employers treated their workers well, many did not. During the 1800s, low wages, long workdays, and terrible working conditions were common in the United States. The labor movement began as a result of workers wanting more of a voice in how they were treated. Tough jobs. Many workers in the 1800s didn't get much time off. At that time, the United States had no rules about how many hours people worked each day or week. The average factory worker worked 100 hours a week. That's about 14 hours each day, every day. People worked as much as they were told to because they didn't want to lose their jobs. Child labor. The Industrial Revolution also led to an increase in child labor. In many factories, the machines could be run by children. Children were also cheaper to hire and easier to control than adults. By the early 1800s, about 2 million school-age children were working in mills or factories in the United States. Many were from families too poor to support them. Children often held jobs before the age of 7. Many worked 6 days a week for up to 18 hours each day. They had little time for rest and no time for school or play. They often faced dangerous working conditions. Many became ill from the long hours at work. Workers joined together. Over time, workers began to join together to change things. They formed labor unions, groups set up to protect workers' rights. Labor unions bargain with employers for better hours, wages, working conditions, and benefits. Unions can call a strike to gain a stronger hand in talks with employers. During a strike, workers refuse to do any more work until changes are made. In 1869, President Ulysses S. Grant announced that government workers only had to work 8 hours each day. Soon after, an effort began to get a similar law passed for people working for private organizations. Many employers didn't want to switch to the 8-hour workday, but over time that began to change. In 1906, 2 large printing companies switched to an 8-hour workday. In 1926, the Ford Motor Company began a 5-day, 40-hour workweek. The company stated that well-rested workers did their jobs better. Even before then, Henry Ford had more than doubled auto workers' wages. He said that well-paid workers had a better attitude, did better work, and were less likely to quit. Labor unions today. Union membership in many businesses has dropped since the 1970s. However, unions for government workers are growing. Teachers, postal workers, firefighters, and police officers all have powerful unions. Today, more than 14 million people in the United States are union members. Help from Congress. The year 1938 was a turning point in the labor movement. At the urging of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Congress passed the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA. Its purpose was to protect workers from poor working conditions. The act limited the work week to 44 hours, changed to 40 hours in 1940. It also set the minimum wage, the lowest wage employers were allowed to pay their workers. Minimum wage. When the Fair Labor Standards Act passed in 1938, the minimum wage was 25 cents per hour. That would be $4.11 in 2016. In 2016, the U.S. minimum wage was $7.25 per hour. States are free to set it higher, and many have. The Act also said that workers had to be paid extra when they work longer hours than usual, or overtime. Workers earn 1.5 times their usual hourly rate for each hour of overtime they work. Overtime is each hour over 40 worked in a work week. Overtime pay was meant to keep employers from forcing people to work too many hours. It was also meant to encourage employers to hire more workers. The Act also set safety rules in the workplace and banned many kinds of child labor. It set the minimum age for workers at 16 during school hours. 14-year-olds could work at certain after-school jobs, but workers had to be 18 for dangerous jobs. Math Minute. A worker's rate of pay is $15 per hour. How much does that worker earn in a 40-hour work week? How much does he or she earn in a week with 10 hours of overtime? Answers: $600, $825. Key people in the labor movement. Mother Jones, Mary Harris Jones, 1837 to 1930, helped coal miners in the early 1900s. Union members called her Mother because of her hard work on behalf of the miners. She traveled across the United States to help striking miners and to end child labor. Samuel Gompers, 1850 to 1924, was president of the American Federation of Labor for almost 40 years. He believed in the power of collective bargaining, talks between union leaders and employers to reach agreements that helped both sides. Through his leadership, collective bargaining became the model for how most unions work today. Eugene Debs, 1855 to 1926, helped found major labor unions for railroad workers and industrial workers. He ran for president 5 times between 1900 and 1920. Debs traveled the country helping workers bargain with their employers. Cesar Chavez, 1927 to 1993, was forced by hardship to become a migrant farm worker when he was 11. In 1962, Chavez helped found what later became the United Farm Workers. This labor union works for the rights, safety, and fair treatment of migrant farm workers. A new holiday. Labor Day was first celebrated in New York City in 1882. In 1887, Oregon became the first state to pass a law making Labor Day an official holiday. 30 more states passed similar laws before the U.S. government made Labor Day a federal holiday in 1894. Canada also celebrates Labor Day on the first Monday in September. More than 60 other countries around the world instead celebrate International Workers' Day on May 1st. Famous people, including the President, give speeches on Labor Day. Parades have been common since the holiday began. Many communities also have festivals featuring music, crafts, fall foods, or special events. A better future. The labor movement improved the way workers are treated and paid. It set limits for workdays and work weeks, introduced safety regulations, brought an end to child labor, and more. Labor Day honors these accomplishments as well as the efforts of all American workers to build and help their country. So enjoy a day off on Labor Day and be sure to have some fun. Just remember to also honor the people who labored to improve the lives of every American worker. Connections. Writing. How did the laws passed by Congress in 1938 change the lives of American workers? Write an article as a newspaper journalist from that time to inform readers about these laws. Social studies. Research a historical figure of the labor movement. Write a biography about that person, including the impact he or she had on the lives of American workers.